Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan Torah. Amen. All right. And we're in Matthew. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, it was a little bit sporting, discussing the end of chapter 4. Right, so we find Yeshua in the Galilee proclaiming the word, so the good news about the kingdom and healing people from every kind of disease and sickness. The word about this goes out for everywhere, people will come, and he casts out demons, he deals with epileptics, paralytics, he heals them all, and huge crowds follow him, even from the Decapolis, Jerusalem, the Galilee, Judah, and ever higher there. Okay, and that's going to be the setup for your first great sermon in the book. Remember, we said that there were a couple of sermons. This is the first one, right? So Matthew 5, 6, and 7. Okay, is the first one. It's called the Sermon on the Mount, otherwise known as the Beatitudes. All right. The reason we get to what do we call it, the Beatitudes? Yes, because it's the beautiful sayings. Okay, and it comes from the word blessed. All right. All happy so far? Seeing the crowds, Yeshua walked up the hill. After he sat down, his Talmidim came to him and he began to speak. This is what he taught them. All right. So he brings them out and he puts them on a mount. Now, how would you normally see Messiah? If you're talking on a hill, what is the picture in your head?
Him on top of it.
Normally, right? We normally sit over there when we see him over the hill and we see him talking down, but that's not the way the layout of the place actually is. When you go to the Beatitudes in the Galilee today, where they believe it took place, you have this natural theater effect happening just behind the church. So what happens is you see a car all the way down at the bottom, and if you keep quiet, you can hear it change gears, and it's probably about 10 k's away. So what probably would have happened is he would have sat at the bottom of the mountain or on the hill further up, but he would have had him sitting facing him that way, and he would have been able to talk like this, and everybody would have heard him quite plainly. Okay? It's an interesting place. It's a fairly pretty church. Why are you hiding back there, eh?
Yeah, it's like a singing.
Yeah, I know exactly. I see you, though. There we go. Yeah, there's a whole row. So we have this scene where we see him at the bottom and he's talking to the crowd, and this should already trigger something into you. Remember what we said when we got to temptations, right? When we spoke about before we get to the temptations really dealt with 3 statements God was making in the baptism. And what were those 3 statements? Okay, Well, please listen to him. All right? Talking about those 3 portions, right? And the listen to him part, where did that come from? Deuteronomy. And who said listen to him? Moses said there is going to become a prophet like me. Listen to him. So Moses went onto the mountain and he received what? Torah. Yeshua parallels this. He goes onto a mount and he starts to teach what? Torah. So he enacts, in a sense, Moses as he goes out, and he sits upon this hill and he's going to start to break down things. But first he's going to try and fix some hard conditions. Now, in many cases, if we're looking for an idea of what this is supposed to be, we can look at what a kingdom servant is supposed to act like. Okay? So from this list, you can start to get an idea of what this person is supposed to be like. And you can check off on your list to see where you are and maybe what you lack. Right? If we lack something, it's not because we are bad, that's just something that God needs to deal with you, and you need to work on those areas. All right? We have these things so that we can grow. Everybody ready? Okay. So, the first formula you're going to see is how blessed are. Any other translation? Blessed, right? Yeah. So when we look at the word blessed, give me the Hebrew word. Asher. As in the tribe of Asher. Okay? And what does Asher mean? Very, very accurate. Okay, one is. I'll take a second. Happy, fortunate, and blessed. It is not one of, but all three of. There's no English word that singular describes what this is. You're happy that you have this. You're fortunate to have this. And you have been drawn closer to God because of this. And he doesn't pick out a formula that's not there. You see this in the Psalms. How blessed are those. Okay? So he's pulling a formula out in Tehillim again in the Psalms. And he's going to apply this to what some people say 7 statements, some people say 8. Okay? We're going to try and break these down and try and figure them out. It doesn't matter if you can recite them, it's what they are to you. How do you apply them? How do you walk this out? What does this mean to me? Because we can very quickly get into this whole idea and philosophize this whole thing, but it really doesn't help us when we think about it practically. Okay? So, he looks at it and he goes, how blessed are the
Poor in spirit.
poor in spirit. Now the word here for poor. What is your idea of poor?
Lack of.
Okay, lack of. Okay? So you're struggling a little bit, would you consider yourself poor? Right? This is not just the lack of, this is the bottom of the rung, have nothing. It's not just that you lack something, it's that you don't have anything to scrape together type of poor. When he refers to this, this is the dirt poor. He says, blessed are poor in spirit. Okay, and let's give the second column. What is the promise that they receive? Before we start to ask a question about what this is about. The kingdom of heaven is this. Right. So what does it mean to have less than nothing spiritually? Why would that be, yay for you, good job?
It means that you need God more.
Right. Okay? Through your lack, you understand what you need. It is not the poor financially, it's not the poor that you don't have enough food, but you lack Him. And in that, you are going to seek Him. And you kind of see this impacted more and more and more again as we go. One commentary said, this is someone who prays continually, who has this deep hunger to communicate with God. So you could...
Sorry. And you also say it's someone who realizes their dependence on Abba.
In many cases, but for one instance, I need more of you. Spiritually speaking, this is what I have. I have less than nothing, but you have everything. And that's what I'm aiming for. That's what I'm looking towards. Okay? What's the next one? How blessed are those who? Mourn. What's the promise?
When you will be comforted.
They will be comforted. Why would you be mourning? Why is that a good thing? What are you mourning about?
Your spiritual condition.
Right. How many of you have looked around and started to focus on other people and other things and realized that maybe you're not where we should be? What is normally a sign biblically when you mourn?
Tearing of clothing.
tearing your clothing, ashes,
Sackcloth.
sackcloth.
Wagging his nose.
Sometimes they stop eating, and all of a sudden my heart condition is so broken. Maybe it's for the people around you, maybe it's for the country you're living in, maybe it's for yourself. How many of you have got to the place where you sit down and you think, I am less than nothing, but yet Abba, you have called me? How many of you have that mournful heart when you mess up? And Father called you and you just broke because you messed up. You got it wrong. But part of owning that is knowing again you need more of Him so that you can be changed. He says, don't worry, you're not done. I'm going to get you there. So if we say, and I'm using these terms loosely, a praying disciple, a fasting disciple. And remember, when you say fasting, it's not just about food, right? It's the condition of the heart that is the most important. Okay? What's the next one? How blessed are the meek. Okay? Now this is kind of an interesting one, because what is your normal idea of meek? That you're weak. Okay, that's the idea that we kind of have. But it's a remnant. Okay? So, give me the promise. What are they going to get?
Inheritance.
Right, so they get an inheritance. Okay? Who else got an inheritance? Israel got a land inheritance, right? You will inherit the Eretz. Okay? Or it could be Aretz. You could inherit the earth. So that when the kingdom is fully established and God restores all things, this is what I have to give you. Okay? Now, I want you to go to Psalm 37. Before we define this, let's stick to our biblical context. And if we go to Psalm 37, and I'll read it for you, what we're going to do is I want you to try and pick up, make down little notes. What do you think this disciple or this kingdom believer has? And it's a couple of pages, all right? But you'll see a central theme that runs through it before we get down to the gist of this. Okay, Psalm 37 by David. Don't be upset by evildoers or envious of those who do wrong, for soon they will wither like grass and fade like green in the fields. Trust in Adonai and do good. Settle in the land and feed on faithfulness. See, with the idea of settle in the land, inherit the land, God is faithful to get you there. Then you will delight yourself in Adonai and He will give you your heart's desire. Commit your way to Adonai, trust in Him and He will act. He will make your vindication shine forth like light and justice of your cause like the noonday sun. Be still before Adonai. Wait patiently till He comes. Don't be upset by those whose way succeeds because of their wicked plans. Stop being angry, put aside rage, and don't be upset. It leads to evil. For evildoers will be cut off, but those hoping in Adonai will inherit the land. Soon the wicked will be no more. You who look for His place, and He won't be there, but the meek will inherit the land, and delight themselves in abundant peace. The wicked plots against the righteous and grinds his teeth at him, and Adonai laughs at the wicked, knowing his day will come. The wicked will have unsheathed their swords. They have strung their bows to bring down the poor and needy, to slaughter those whose way is upright, but their swords will pierce their own hearts, and their bows will be broken. Better the little that the righteous has than the wealth of all the wicked. For the arms of the wicked will be broken, but Adonai upholds the righteous. Adonai knows what the wholehearted suffer. Knows what the wholehearted suffer, but their inheritance lasts forever. They will not be distressed when times are hard. When famine comes, they will have plenty. for the wicked will perish. Adonai's enemies will be like sheep fat, ending up in smoke. Finished. The wicked borrows and doesn't repay, but the righteous is generous and gives. For those blessed by Adonai will inherit the land, but those who are cursed by him will be cut off. Adonai directs a person's steps, and he delights in his way. He may stumble, but he won't fall headlong, for Adonai holds him by the hand. Isn't that nice? I have been young, now I am old, yet I have not seen the righteous abandoned or the descendants begging for bread. All day long he is generous and lends, and his descendants are blessed. If you turn from evil and do good, you will live safely forever. For Adonai loves justice. For he will not abandon his faithful, they are preserved forever. But the descendants of the wicked will be cut off. The righteous will inherit the land and live in it forever. The mouth of the righteous articulates wisdom. His tongue speaks justice. The Torah of his God is in his heart, and his footsteps do not falter. The wicked keeps his eyes on the righteous, seeking the chance to kill him. But Adonai will not leave him in his power or let him be condemned when judged. Put your hope in Adonai. Keep to his way, and he will raise you up to inherit the land. When the wicked are cut off, you will see it. I have seen a wicked man wielding great power, flourishing like a shade tree in its native soil, but I passed by again, and he was no longer there. I looked for him, but he could not be found. Observe the pure person, consider the upright, for the peaceful person will have posterity, but transgressors will all be destroyed. The posterity of the wicked will be cut off. Adonai is the one who saves the righteous. He is their stronghold in times of trouble. Adonai helps them and rescues them from the wicked and saves them because they take refuge in him. So what is meek?
Honoring God, taking God as your refuge.
Right, so taking God as your refuge, understanding who he is and understanding who you are. What else? So when you see injustice, what does the meek person do?
Leave it to God.
Leave it to God, and also doesn't stress about whether a wicked person is lifted up and he is left low. When famine comes, does he freak out? No, because God is his provider. No matter what is going on, no matter what plots are out there to destroy you, no matter who or what they say, it does not matter because God alone is the one who keeps you. Now this is where meek gets a little interesting. Again, this word is very difficult to translate in the Greek. Now what they say, I'm not a Greek scholar, so I'm quoting here, says, someone who demonstrates power without harshness. So if God is your refuge and you are on solid ground and you're standing in full peace, knowing that you can cry out to God, knowing that you can exact justice, knowing that you can but not. There's another word in Zechariah 9:9. It says, he will come, humble riding on a donkey is normally our translation, right? The word there is the same word used here. He will come meek, riding on a donkey. So even though they were lifting him up as king, even though he knew they were going to betray him, even though they knew it all and he had all the power, he had nothing but compassion. So that brings in twofold thing here. Understand that you are not made for here, you are made for them. Understand that your kingdom is going to be established. Understand that you are heirs to that kingdom. Understand who is your Father. And with that power, don't be like the sons of Zebedee and call down lightning on those who mock you or those you don't like. But show compassion and love them the way Father loves them. Yes, ma'am?
Can I just ask you, can we just then sum it up in a nutshell, is meek then not using the strength or the power that you could have if you wanted to, but for the better you're not. Is that basically it?
Being all powerful, but being compassionate as well. Okay? And again, it's following God, isn't it? God has every right to hold a nation ransom. Every right to strike us down when we rebel against Him, but He doesn't. Why? Because of His love. So what is He really asking you here? To be a kingdom servant, to belong to me, to be there at the end of it all, to reign over my creation. I want you to be like me. Power and compassion. Another translation said, demonstrating power without harshness. Sometimes we need to get back to that. We need to get to God's heart. If God is your refuge, remember, they don't have Him. If God is what keeps you up, it's not you. Don't let pride or arrogance come involved. The reason you're here is because He chose you, not because you did anything. The reason you're saved is because He chose to. He chose to save you. You didn't earn it. The question He asks is, what are you going to do with it? Don't you know you were made for a purpose? You were made for a future. And it's not about the stuff. It's not about who gets lifted up. You see a man who cheats on his taxes and he runs around and he does all these horrible things and you go, why? How can the unrighteous be so prosperous? You're looking at the wrong kingdom. It's not here that you're focusing on. The inheritance, which is God and the new creation that's coming, that's your inheritance. Not about now. Get shifted. Move. Keep your eyes. He's going to give you what you need. He's going to cover you even though everything here is broken. That's fine. But remember, sons and daughters of the Most High. If I'm seeing that things are not right, am I crying out for them? Am I asking God for more of Him so that He can come and flow through me, so maybe less will be lost? Am I showing them the true face of someone that has all authority and power and yet complete love? Or am I just showing them how quickly I can throw toddler tantrums when I don't get my way? What is going to be an accurate reflection of God? Next one. How blessed are those who
thirst for righteousness.
hunger and thirst for righteousness. Promise?
They will be full.
And again, this in its process doesn't just talk about being a little hungry. This talks about starving. This is not just talking about being a little thirsty. This is talking about someone who has not had a drink of water for 2 or 3 days. Now, I don't think this means that you don't go reading your Bible for 4 days so you can starve. This means
continuation of seeking.
a continual thirst for Him. But remember what Yeshua said? If you drink of me, what? If you drink of this water that I'm willing to give, if anyone is thirsty, because if He comes and He brings that source in you and that source flows through you,
Yeah, we have to keep talking about everything.
if He is the bread of life, how much do I hunger and thirst for Him? That ruach. Is it something that I crave, that my belly aches for, that my heart yearns for? Do I thirst for His righteousness, not my own? kingdom servant. This is about him. How badly do I want it? Is it something that drives me? How much do you seek it? And he says, don't you worry, I'm coming. Next one. How blessed are those?
You shall miss.
Promise?
And then treated mercifully.
Will receive mercy. Ooh-wee. Let me ask you a question, tell me then. When someone wrongs you, when someone hurts you, do you look deeper than the hurt that you received to try and figure out the person? Or do you just throw your toys and demand restitution? God, you will avenge me. You will sort this out. You will strike them down for what they did to me. You know what I find funny? How many times did God hold our hands when we were hurting other people? And we look back and we are so, so grateful that He was patient and compassionate and He gave us time, and we're, in many times, it took me a long time to stop beating myself over the mistakes that I've made. That I hurt other people because of the mistakes I made, including hurting myself. And I'm very grateful for His mercy. But how often am I merciful? You know, one of the big things that helped me is that instead of looking at the hurt and looking at their reaction and how it reflects on me, I stop and I look at the person and I'm trying to figure out what's causing them to have that reaction. Why do I do that? So that I don't focus on me, but I focus on how I can help them instead. There's always a root cause. There's always something going on. There's always a reaction. And then I look at the person and I see them for what they are. They're hurting, they're broken, they're lashing out, they're throwing tantrums. Generally, sometimes they don't even know how to behave any different. You know, Scripture says they don't know their left from their right. They don't know up or down. They don't know the difference between light and darkness. They have nothing but darkness. So how can I expect them to act like they have light? Have you ever met someone, you know, before God switched on your light maybe, and you remember what it was like to live life without Him? You run into people like that all the time. Are we slow to anger? Are we merciful? Are we going, listen, but I acted just like you. I know you better than you think I do. You used to be me, man. And you're hurting and you're scared and you don't want to admit it. I'm not going to hold this against you. God didn't hold it against me. Listen to me, there's something else that you guys need to learn to do. As God forgave you, you don't dare hold anybody else against the sins that they have done. Their past is their past, God forgave them. You forget about it as well. It's not about remembering somebody's past so that you can pull it up every now and again. It is remembering someone's future. The only time I look back is to see how far God brought someone. Because the only time I look back is to see how far He brought me. God is a master of meeting you in the middle of nowhere and no having any idea who He is or what He's about. And He goes, come, let's go for a walk. How long? Well, 50 years, give or take. And by the time I'm finished with you, you won't even recognize me. So the person you were, let them be. When someone else comes up these stairs and you might have known what they used to be like, rather pretend like you don't know them, because you don't. Mercy. God let it go. You let it go. Whether you're judging yourself, whether you're judging others. You want forgiveness? Forgive. Next one.
So those who are poor and pure in heart.
Pure in heart. Now, this doesn't that just sound like one of those warm, squishy feelings? Oh, you're so pure in heart. What does that even mean? The promise is they will see God. They will see Him. And a little note here, if you're so busy focused on Him, it's not about you. What are your motives? I've been dealing with a lot of these over the last 2 weeks. I don't know, my son, God has got me going the same thing. I think he's just grinding in the same message into my life. And every week it's the same thing. I've been asking people, what's their why? Why are you fighting for this? Why do you choose this each and every day? What are you aiming at? What is the reason you get up in the morning and you say, today's the day, it's God and me. When my feet hit the ground, it's discipleship on the move. Before my feet hit the ground, it's Abba, thank you, I'm alive and I'm here and let's do this. And before I go to bed, thank you, Abba, you did some awesome things today. Let me rest up. Tomorrow's going to be another big day. What is your why? What is your motive? Don't hide anything. Don't hide anything. What is your motive? Some of us forget our why. You start off strong and you beeline and you're excited and God's good all the time, and then you run into your first brick wall and it starts to slow you down. And then you start to overthink it and things are difficult, and then you get hurt, and then this person doesn't like it, and then this one drops you, and then that dog kicks you, and then this does that and that, and then you're sitting over there and you go, oh, you know this is too hard and my life sucks, so what's the point? For those of you who might have been baptized a while ago, and I ask you, why did you climb into that water? And start with leadership.
Because I was broken and I know I needed something better.
Right. So you were running towards
God.
for a future, right? Randy?
I just wanted to be better. I was just so not good. I knew that everything I tried in life was just useless, and so Abba Father was the only one.
What's yours?
Me,
This man.
running after Yeshua.
Right? Johnny?
There was an emptiness, and I wanted a new life, that which was with Yeshua and God.
It's a declaration of my faith. I was trying to make a bold statement that I stand for God no matter what.
I would say it was, I just felt an overwhelming sense of obedience, that I needed to be obedient. Didn't really factor much into it. It was just, I've got to do this,
Yeah.
Obey.
Obedience. Obedience. So what keeps you? What keeps you pushing for this? Is it still the same motivator? Or did you get a taste of it and then you started to hunger even more? You started to hold on even more. And the more you got closer to him, to realize how broken you really were and how much more you needed him, so you held on even more. And what is your hope? What is the reason you still cling? Change, reward. Can't do this alone. You know? I love it because there's no singular answer to this. This is something intrinsic that you need to choose. Because it's the only reason you are going to do this when no one else is watching you do it. Are you going to be the disciple that's willing to stand out there by yourself? Or maybe God is generous and He sends out 2 at a time. Shlichim gets sent out 2 at a time. And they go stand over there and we're looking at the world and we're going, okay, these people are not part of our tribe. Are you going to stand up and you're going to go, you know what, God put us here, let's do this. Let's not condemn them, let's show them a different way. Let's show them life as what they've always needed. Let's show them compassion, let's give them mercy, let's give them God in space so that we can stand over there and genuinely look at them and go, you have nothing without Him. And it's that thing that drives you every day that's going to make those feet hit the ground and go, no matter what I face, eyeballs, no matter what I face, no matter what's coming up against me, no matter how I feel right now, because it's not about me. To be pure in heart is realizing as a kingdom servant, it's not about me. Thank God, because I needed to be about something bigger than me. What can I offer somebody? Right now, what can I really give somebody out of my own? That which I have, the money's going to run out, yes? And am I really changing anybody for eternity? No. I'm meeting a singular need right now. And I can be about everybody's business and lose myself while I'm busy meeting everybody's expectation. Or I can give them an inexhaustible supply of God because He flows through me, because I'm not looking at myself, I'm looking at Him and I'm just going, let go. Father, just as you saved me, give them what they need. Fix the broken, heal the hurts, give them the desire, give them that thirst. Let them taste you once, Father, they will chase you down for the rest of your lives. Just meet them. What is your motivation? Is it about Him or is it about you? To see God as He truly is. Not as I need Him to be, because I need Him to fix whatever or however, but to actually see Him for Him. That's a big shift. Next one.
Peacemakers.
Is it? Is it?
Peacemakers.
Peace.
We call the sons of Elohim.
Mm. Sorry, ladies, this is not for you. Just teasing. Just teasing. What does it mean to be a peacemaker? How do I make peace?
You don't look for trouble.
Hello?
Negotiation.
And then, yeah, person hiding behind book number 2. Don't worry, we'll just stare at book until she answers.
No, please don't.
I've got all night and a cup of coffee. What do you want to do?
What is the question?
What's a peacemaker?
To make peace.
How do I do that?
Oh my goodness.
Come on, Buchi, you can.
How do you make peace in your family? Let Let's do it. Portia is trying to beat the snot out of Margie, and Margie's like, back off, Guido. And then Buchler's in the middle.
I'll show you the better way.
What's the better way? Your slippers.
Give everyone
How do you make peace?
I think you have to have peace to make peace, quite honestly, because otherwise you're running around just looking
Right.
for an issue.
Okay. Now you can't give what you don't have. What else?
You put yourself in the middle. Pretty
Right.
much. Why? Because most of the time when people are fighting with each other, it's a misunderstanding, or they don't put themselves in someone else's shoes. So if you put yourself in the middle, you like softening the blows on each other,
Okay, that's nice. Why would you do that?
because you love both of them and you see they hurt each other.
Okay, why? From a kingdom perspective, why would I want to do that?
That's what God wants me to do.
Why?
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 Because Abba said so.
I don't know, I just find myself in the middle of it always.
Why? Why would he want you to do that? What do wolves do to sheep?
Eat them.
Single
Eat
one.
them apart.
Separate the herd and then pick off the weak. What are you called to do?
bring it together.
Right. Unite the herd. Bring this flock in. Get everybody in place.
Also, I think wisdom, I mean, if you take a look at Solomon, he had those 2 prostitutes that came with the baby that was dead and was alive.
Yeah.
And to bring peace, he had wisdom from God to say, okay, well, bring me a sword, I'll cut it in half. And then that brought it about. So putting yourself in the shoe of the people as well,
Right.
to understand what they're going through.
Yeah. And in many cases it
And
could
not
be
just blaming and judging before understanding.
rendering justice fairly. When a person's wrong, it's wrong. Own it. Okay? We get it. You made a mistake. You were grumpy. You threw your toys. But now let's face the consequences of that.
Also, sometimes people go into blind rage and they can't see another side or another way to do it.
Why do they do that?
Broken piece.
Broken, yeah.
There's no-
In many cases they do, but there's one major factor. It's more about self than it is about anything else. It's how I feel when you did that to me. That's it. It's not how you felt, and you must be hurting to be able to say something like that to me. How many of you have walked into an office or walked into a room and realized someone's having a bad day? How many of you turn around and go the other way? If you can. How many of you are willing to change the situation by being gentle? So when you walk in and you realize someone's having a bad day, is it possible that you could walk in and just look at them with compassion in your eyes and saying, you're hurting that much, I can see.
It's love.
They might not want to hear it right now, they might want to vent, they might want to growl, they might want to do whatever, but how long are you going to sit there and realize they're not shouting at you? They're not whining at you? They're just trying to process hurt. How many of us just take the time to actually look at someone for what they're busy dealing with and help them understand where God is? Because this is not peace, it's not the absence of conflict, this is shalom. Everything is as it should be because He's on the throne. Are you looking to Him? Are you focusing on Him, or are you just trying to force your own agenda? One's going to bring peace and one's going to bring conflict.
Vince, can I ask, coming from another angle, can it be rest? Because Yeshua said, I give you my peace, the peace that surpasses understanding. Can it also be rest? So there's stillness, there's quietness about you. You teach others to do that as well, because I can't remember where it is now, but I think it's pertaining to women. It's Paul that writes it. It says, Father cherishes above all else a quiet spirits.
And gentle. It's in Peter.
So So can it be that, or is it non-quiet?
No, I think that's very much part of it. Because a lot of the time the conflict is within a person. So how do I help them deal with that? Because most of the time, let's face it, because of the brokenness we lash out. We don't get it, it forms a trigger, the trigger brings an explosion, and so we carry on with our same destructive cycle. You know, Yeshua was there, like we read in 1 John 4, he's there to break the sin cycle. If that's part of it, if sin is self-destructive, then it's about changing you, so it's less about self and more about him. Right? You will be called sons of God. You will belong to him. You will act like him. You will be truly, remember when it talks about you will be like sons of Abraham, that means you have the faith of Abraham. If you act like God, you will truly become sons like God. You will be really acting like your father. Next one.
Persecuted
Okay?
for righteousness' sake.
You guys don't mind, I'm just going to do it here. Persecuted for righteousness. And no promise?
Reign of heaven.
Sorry?
The reign of heaven these days.
The reign of heaven, another translation?
Kingdom of heaven.
Kingdom of heaven. Okay, again, he brings it back. All about the kingdom, right? That's the promise. Kingdom of God. If you're persecuted for righteousness, why is that a nice thing? Is it a good thing? It's an expected thing, actually. It's very simple.
Being persecuted for doing wrong.
Darkness hates light. God lights a light. How many of you are sleeping in a dark room and someone walks in and just grabs curtains and flings everything open? How many of you are extremely happy and thankful for that wonderful light that is blasting through your room? Or do you hear more like really fake, crazy noises of like hissing cats and such things? And they all want to climb underneath the duvets and hide some more in the darkness because their eyes have adjusted to it. Now if you're spiritually blind and adjusted to the darkness because the people you surround yourself with and the things you watch and your experiences and there's no point and it's all about darkness, 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 darkness means depression, depression means hopelessness, hopelessness means pointless everything, why am I even here, I don't care. God, all of a sudden, you know what, switch off the lights please. Come the light for us there. There's one at the bottom.
Okay,
Right. Okay. So all of my great tell me what was written at point number 3. Yeah, exactly. So when you kind of just stay focused on this is your reality. Mood. Right.
That's interesting, eh? Because you tend to only focus on your self. I'm not worried about who you are. I'm now all on my own. I can't see you. So guess what? I only really feel for me now. My own safety is what is important now. And then my eyes are getting used to it now. Now I know it's you.
I want people on
How many of you had to blink twice? What happens if that is your reality? Plummets quickly, doesn't it? You see, if you focus only on your problems, that's all you will see, your problems. if you focus your lack of light in your life, did Yeshua not say, I am the light of the world? And now he's saying, he's going to come, he's going to call you the light. And we become so focused on our own things, and we're not hungering and thirsting for righteousness. We are not chasing after those things, but when we do, when that light switches on in us and we run at it, and we're thirsty and we're grabbing and we're living it, and you walk into a room where all they like is darkness, what do you think the reaction is going to be?
Run.
No, get rid of the light.
Yeah.
It's simple. You know, there's a pertinent, when you look at Elijah, right? Elijah prays for he says 3 years, no rain, please, don't. And he hides, and they can't catch him. And they've looked everywhere because they're going to kill the prophet, because if we kill the prophet, we lift the plague. It's not the prophet who made the plague, but it was the God who did. So I'm going to kill his representative. And Ahab, God says to Elijah, he meets with Ahab's servant. I forget his name now. Anyway, he meets with him and he says, I'm here, go call Ahab. And as soon as Ahab gets to him, he goes, is that you, O troubler of Israel?
Yes. No,
You know, don't mind your idolatry. Don't mind the fact that you kill people for vineyards. Don't mind the fact that you are just all over the place and you are nowhere near God. The darkness always blends light. Guys, Yeshua promised. They didn't like him, they're not going to like you. So don't try. If I am holding on and I'm chasing after all of this and I'm crying out to him and I'm looking for him to fill me and his righteousness is really coming in, and when I receive it and I start walking out in power in his kingdom, there are going to be people that love you and people that don't. The next one, he carries on in verse 11. How blessed are those when people insult you and persecute you and tell you all kinds of vicious lies about you because you follow me. He goes, this is awesome. It's a wonderful thing.
Obadiah. What's the servant of Elijah?
Okay.
So you go through this whole process and you become like God, and he's slowly but changing you, but all you hear is insults. All you hear is get away from us. All you hear is I don't want you to be here. You don't fit in. So normally one or two things happen. When it becomes hard and you don't have enough why in you, you start to form to be less of a light so you don't hurt as many eyes. You try and blend in a little bit more. And you justify why it's okay for you to do so. Before you realize that the flame has gone out. Or, you get things thrown at you. And God doesn't say, weep because of persecution. He says, rejoice. Be glad. Because your reward in heaven is great. They persecuted the prophets before you the same way. Kingdom dynamic. If they don't like you, it's because you're reflecting him. If they didn't like him, they're not going to like you. When that happens, throw a party. I remember when I was going through an attack, and I looked to God and I said, how is it that I see you so clearly and they just don't? How is it? It is as plain as a nose on your face. But how don't they? He didn't explain to me why they don't see him. He just said, rejoice. You're doing something right, kid, carry on. If you can stand up for your Father, that's all that matters. You stand for truth. Because you might be the only light those people ever see. Here's an interesting one. You are salt for the land. But if salt becomes tasteless, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown after the people to trample on. Okay, so what is salt normally used for?
Taste.
Taste.
Flavor, taste, okay? So, how does someone lose its salt, its salty flavor? How does salt lose its salty flavor? Or its saltiness? Alright, where do I get salt? Biblical times, Middle East.
Salt pans.
Dead Sea.
Dead Sea. I literally go grab a clump of it and I get rid of as much oil as I possibly can and I sprinkle little bits all over my food. But what happens if I am having a picnic and then there's a sudden rainstorm and I leave my clump of salt outside? And there's lots of water.
Dilutes.
Is my salt going to be salty? No, it's going to become useless. So I throw it away. Okay, it's lost this point. The reason I kept it is for this, to add flavor. What else does salt represent? Okay, cleansing, right? It purifies. So, if the Levites were sprinkled out like salt, they were to cleanse the land. It's also used as a preserving agent. Preserve the land.
Covenant.
And there's also a covenant of salt, which means if you do this, I'll take care of you. But there was something interesting that I found, because God's generous like that. I want you to go to Luke 14, verse 34. He's got a different slant on this idea.
Can I also tell you something about salt?
Let's pause.
Luke 14.
Yeah, Luke 14. And that's when you think you know very much, and he goes, oh yeah, but then this. Luke 14, verse 34, if I wrote my note down. Ah, yes. Salt is excellent, but if even the salt becomes tasteless, what can be used to season it? It is fit for neither the soil nor manure. People throw it out. Those who have ears that can hear, let him hear. Well, that's a slightly different slant, isn't it? If you lose your flavor, you are fit neither for the soil or for the pile of poop. Now, none of the things that we spoke about had that in its mention. So apparently, I've mentioned did some research, apparently, something that they don't talk about, in the place where you go for a walkies with your little spade, and you go and do some stuff, or you go put your animal areas, salt is sprinkled around it because it is a disinfectant. Cleans, right? So that was an ancient practice. But you would think it would have stopped there, but he says it's neither good for the soil as well. He has a really weird fun fact. Because of the amount of minerals we find in the Dead Sea, one of the biggest things that they actually bring out is something called potash. Potash is very good for root development. And what they found is when they took salt, and apparently in World War II and Great Recession and things of depression and things like that, they actually used salt as a fertilizer. Now in my mind, you throw salt out, it kills things. Apparently not. It releases certain nutrients in the soil, and it actually allows the roots to grow. It's not a fantastic one, but it is one. Okay? Fun facts.
Yeah, wasn't salt, didn't they use that in war to actually desolate the land?
No, that's what I wanted to say.
Is it not maybe excessive amounts?
Probably.
So it depends
A
on
little bit
quantity.
of amounts because of the potash actually inside of it actually starts to get something going. It's really odd. But it is what it is. I checked this fact 3 different and actually went into a whole bunch of reasons why.
Yeah, when I did Luke, I did the same sort of digging, and I found that they mix salt with fertilizer
Yeah.
in those arid regions, exactly for what you said.
Yes.
Then the commentator also took it a step further, and he said if you add too much salt, it actually burns the crops.
Yeah.
And he said you need to give the word in good measure, so as not to drown or burn
I was going to say, don't be a Bible basher because then you're going to push people away.
too much salt.
Right. Too much it'll burn and it'll sting, it'll be too painful, and then they'll run away. Little bit by little bit, yeah? Helps grow roots.
About 12 years ago, God spoke to me about salt. And I don't know what you call it in English, but you call it kudansi. It's this big reference
Credenza.
book that
Yes.
you use,
Okay.
the pastors usually use.
Concordance.
And what I found in there was Lot's wife turned into a pillar of salt. And it was weird why salt should have been anything.
Right?
But the great amount of salt that she was, the place where she was standing, she made it infertile. That sand concentration is just so much that nothing can live there.
Mhm.
So if you do get, if they win wars, they would sprinkle the salt. Now I don't know why, you just answered that. But if we are like salt that is thrown away so often, then where we are going to walk, we are going to be fruitless.
Well, if there's too much in measure.
No.
Right. Okay, so we have different aspects of it, so we need to start to look at this and let's listen to what Messiah said, right? You are the salt for the land. But if the salt becomes tasteless, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out for people to trample on. You're not throwing it into your fields. You're not disinfecting around the areas for the manure. You're not using it at your table. It is worth nothing. There is no point in your loyalty. If you are salt and you become tasteless, never lose your function. Never lose your why. You were saved for a reason, and that reason is about the kingdom. It's not about you. You are light for the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Likewise, when people light a lamp, they don't cover it with a bowl, but put it on a lampstand. What's the word in Hebrew for lampstand? Menorah. So what is he referencing? So listen to what he says. He says, so that it shines for everyone in the house. The house in rabbinic writing is the temple. That lampstand, that menorah, represents the seven spirits of God. It is light, that means God is here. It was a picture of the Shekinah, the very presence of God, which was light. Okay? And at the same time, when we look at this, because we have light, the priesthood can function. Don't hide it. You missed the point. Now, there was something called signal fires on cities. When I came close to a city, okay, they would use Northax and things like that to burn. It would give like a licoricey sort of scenario. But it would burn white and it would burn hot and it would be bright, but it let off a black smoke. If I see that, and I'm coming up to the city, what does that mean? If the signal fire is lit, what do you think it means?
Trouble.
If there's fire in the fireplace, is someone home? Yes. Means everything's fine, you can come in. But when you don't see a signal fire, that means it could be war, it could be plague. This is not a good place for you to keep on going. So if God lights the light in you, don't hide it. And if He's going to put you in place so that other people can see Him, bring people to life, bring people to the menorah, bring people to His house, you're there to attract them, not repel them.
Were the signal fires also used for new moons so that they could let everyone know that it was coming around?
They did for a while, yeah, they did.
They also, signage.
They used it for a few things. When the signal fires were lit, they would tell them sometimes in Gross Kodesh, up until a point where other people cottoned on to the idea and wanted to mess with them and actually made false signal fires. And then they started sending out via telegram, horseback, right, and they went out. But at the same time, it was also about the city still standing. I think this situation is very much the case. Okay? In the same way, let your light shine before people so that they may see the good things you do and praise your Father in heaven. If God is dwelling in you and they see the light that comes from you, they will praise your God. Please remember, if you do something and you feel like no one else is noticing, that's the point. Otherwise, you're doing it for self and not for Him. Don't think that I have come to abolish the Torah and the prophets. I have not come to abolish, but to complete. All right, let's stop there for a second. Now, This word obviously has caused some very interesting debates in our time. Now, if we look at it from just a plain sense as it's normally translated, I did not come to abolish but to fulfill. Okay, so abolish seems to be the opposite of fulfill. So if someone brings up that thing, they say, well, he did it so that we don't have to. That's the logic. Okay, it doesn't work because that would mean he did it so I won't have to. That means he did it so he would abolish it in my life again. Yes? Follow my logic? So he didn't come to abolish it, but he came to abolish it is most people's understanding. That is incorrect. Right? We must understand in our setting it is a rabbi expounding on Torah. Okay? Now when we back translate this from a Greek understanding into Hebraic one, and I will prove to you that this is the context. They use two words. Mekayen means to uphold. Okay? To establish. And levatel, which means to nullify, to break. Right? Now these two terms are Hebraic terms used when two rabbis get into discussions about how to observe God's instruction. So, when Yeshua, a rabbi, comes up and he starts explaining Torah, which he's going to get into, he's going to challenge the interpretation of the people that were there before him. If I challenge the interpretation, I want to adjust a heart condition problem that is prevalent and that's going on here. Legalistic understanding. What's the definition of legalism?
Doing because you have to.
Right. Man-made understanding led to man-made conduct. God's understanding leads to godly conduct. How you view something is how you're going to apply it. Correct? Right. So if I understand the mechanics of a cup, how to use the cup correctly. If one uses their feet to hold the cup and puts their big toe and their next toe over there and gently lifts it to pour said coffee into one's mouth. Functionality, working good, yes?
Yep.
We'll have lots of scorched people because this is very difficult if you don't have monkey feet, which I do. So you will not be able to do that because you are giving the wrong instruction and you will go towards wrong conduct. Now if your heart condition is not correct and you're following just the letter and it's not changing anything about the heart, you've missed the point of Torah completely. So let a rabbi explain a rabbinic term. Now listen to the way he does this. Yes, indeed, I tell you that until heaven and earth pass away, not so much of a yud or a stroke will pass from the Torah. There's two also interesting little terms. You get the yud, teeniest little letter, also the first letter of God's name. Now, certain, when you see that script, they actually do a little bit of a kick and then they come up. That little least stroke of the pen is that piece of the yud. Some of our translations will say not one jot or tittle. Now some people believe that's a little punctuation mark at the bottom, which at that point they never had. So it can't be that. It is this point here, which is a decorative rendering of something they call a quotes. It is the slightest stroke of a flare of a pen to bring into the yod. It's like studying calligraphy. If you've ever seen a scribal man do his work, a scribe go out, you will see that specific touch. So he says, nothing will pass away from the Torah, not until everything that must happen has happened. Has everything that needs to happen happened yet? No. So Torah must still stand, yes?
Yes.
According to Messiah. So whoever disobeys the least of these mitzvot, what is the least of the mitzvot?
Should not love you.
No, you see, we don't even understand what that means. Rabbis for generations before Messiah had debates. What is the smallest instruction? And they got down to a point. The least of God's instructions are when you go and you see a nest and there's little eggs in it and you want the eggs, chase the mother bird away first and then take the eggs so you don't give her distress. That is the least of the Torah mitzvot. And he says, if you nullify the least of these, if you don't do this, the least of these, you will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. If you don't take the least of the commandments seriously, you will be called least in the kingdom. But listen to what he says. It says, whoever disobeys the least of these mitzvot and teaches others to do so will be called the least of the king in the kingdom of heaven. That's important. In the kingdom. So even someone who teaches not to follow the least of the instructions is still in the kingdom. Correct?
Yes, sir.
It appears so according to what Messiah says. But whoever obeys them and so teaches will be called great in the kingdom of heaven.
Can I share this translation because I'm finding it's not leaving much room for
Okay.
arguing. It's the Names of God translation. It says, don't ever think that I came to set aside Moses' teachings or the prophets. I didn't come to set them aside, but to make them come true. I can guarantee this truth until the earth and the heavens disappear, neither a period nor a comma will disappear from the scriptures before everything has come true. So whoever sets aside any command that seems unimportant and teaches others to do the same will be unimportant in the kingdom of heaven.
Right.
I think that's very plain.
That is, without getting into the rabbinic idea.
Yeah, sure.
Okay? Now-
That's a little, sorry, that's a bit confusing, the scripture to me. Because if thou be unimportant in the kingdom or in the kingdom thou recognize them unimportant, will they still be in the kingdom?
Yes, ma'am. So my understanding of that, if we took it as a salvation issue, you're still saved. But because you didn't take his instructions seriously, you will be called least.
So it's not that they're speaking in the kingdom of heaven and they're calling him unimportant,
Yes.
and he's not in, but he's in.
Right. You see, those who are lifted up are those who taught the very heart and established what God taught. A good rabbi follows his teacher. If God is the ultimate teacher, can then I take away from what he taught?
No.
Never, because if I take away one verse, I take away a part of his character. I take away who he is, what he doesn't like. Right? And then I say, that's not important, as if saying, well, he doesn't really care about that, but clearly he does. And that's the whole point of this thing, is what he likes and how he wants us to live, not the way I want to live. By nullifying that, I'm taking away from his kingship. Saying, yeah, I heard you, but I actually think it's better if we do it this way. That's not really important. Seriously, is that really important? Not to me. So I will do it this way. And then all of a sudden we start to tell the king he doesn't know what he's doing. We are very good at that. He still loves us enough to save us, but our obedience is terrible. Right? So as we come to more understanding, we must understand that our interpretation of what we need to do hinges on a heart condition that represents our Father. To uphold it means to put it into practice to establish it. And I will teach it, not only, remember, how will I show the world that I take his mitzvot seriously? By doing it. It's obvious. Any rabbi is that with his salt. If he tells you to do something and he doesn't do it himself, he doesn't really believe it.
How much of commandments did Jesus actually take to be his responsibility after the sacrifice?
After that?
After his death and resurrection. Because obviously now he was sacrificed and he became the high priest. So all of those things are his responsibility, what he's doing now for us.
Yeah.
So how much of the commandments, besides the sacrifices and the high priest stuff that he's doing for us, what else besides those things that he said he will do for us now?
Well, the thing is, he established everything and he gave us the pattern of which his disciples were supposed to do already. He says, that which I taught you, you do. You go and teach them, remember the Great Commission, teach them to obey everything that I taught you to do. And what did he teach? He quoted Deuteronomy 33 times. More than once, right? So he goes in and he establishes Torah. He says, this is how you live it. Then he goes out and he shows them the fullness of what's going to happen. And when he comes again, millennial reign, he's going to establish those same things. He doesn't change. According to John, Christ is the same, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. God is the same, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Obviously, there's ones that apply to us and there's ones that don't.
Yes, that one.
All right? Well, he was a man, so as a man, he could
No,
not fulfill the instructions of a lady.
Not that, but in terms of, again, what he's doing for us, we don't have to go to those things.
No, well, you only in the term of the sacrificial understanding.
Yes, those, right.
Right.
Or was it only the sacrificial things that he took upon himself?
In many cases, yes. Because you're going to look at the offering system. Now, he doesn't do away with the offering system. How do I know that?
It's going to be reestablished in the right?
Is it still applicable to me today? Absolutely. If someone comes in and they need forgiveness of sins, can he turn to Yeshua? Right. If you need forgiveness of sins, can you turn to Yeshua now? So his blood is still covering. We're still holding on to a sacrifice. He's still petitioning in the throne room. Then the sacrificial system still stands. Right?
Interesting.
It's how the context has shifted. It's the heavenly tabernacle that he needs. He's preparing for us and establishing something that's going to be so much bigger than what we understood before. Complete recreation. And to get us to that process, he's shown us how to live. Now remember, God has given us an instruction, and at this point, people have taken it to head, but not to heart. In many cases. So they talk their way around it, and this is what it's going to create. Okay? So, it says, verse 20 is an interesting one. He says, for I tell you that unless your righteousness is far greater than the Torah teachers and the Pharisees, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven. That's a big statement if you don't understand what he was talking about. Okay, what is a righteous person? What is righteous? To be upright. But if I give tzedakah in Hebrew, what does that mean? I'll give you a Hebrew idiom. He has a good eye. Yeshua uses it. Tzedakah is giving of righteousness. That means I help people around me. I have compassion on them. I lift them up. I build them up. And it means I'm generous. That's what it means to have a good eye. So a righteous person, he says, if you exceed the righteousness of them, now we need to understand something. The Pharisees and the Torah teachers, they were fantastic in many cases. You could not question their devotion. They were fantastic in self-discipline, in worship, in teaching, making disciples, in praying, in reaching people. Their whole lives hinged on that. And in many cases, if you had to compare your life to them, you would fall short. What was their problem? How can our righteousness exceed that of the Torah teachers and Pharisees?
They were self-righteous, as far as I understand. They were looking towards the external traditions and little things that they did in order to communicate their own righteousness.
Right. And what is the difference between you and them? Well, how does that change? Whose righteousness are you working towards?
Not ours.
Not your eyes.
God's God's righteousness.
He
And
is our righteousness.
there's a picture in the tabernacle. Gold is a symbol of righteousness in the tabernacle, yes? The wood in the tabernacle is a picture of you. How often do you see the wood overlaid with gold? You see, it says in Scripture that He will cover you with His righteousness, not your own. You're not going to earn your way salvation. It is a gift for you. You're not going to get there by yourself. So you need to pursue His righteousness, not your own. It became about them, not their own. How many disciples could I make? Am I a great rabbi or am I not? Let me compare myself against the sages, the other great rabbis, and we'll have a debate. Who is the greatest among you? Didn't the disciples have a similar conversation?
Yes.
Who's the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? And they weren't asking about, am I going to be a fantastic rabbi? They were just asking about where they were going to sit. Will I get seated at the head of the table next to this Messiah?
Greatest.
Or will I sit at the least point? You see, the kingdom of heaven, Talmud will understand, it's not about our glory, but His. It is about the righteous that covers you, that fills you, that equips you to be able to give them God, not more of you. Get yourself out of the way so He can flow. Now this is where he gets to the heart condition challenge. He says, you have heard that our fathers were told. In other translations, you will heard that it was said. But I say to you. Interesting translation. Says, do not murder. That anyone who commits murder will be subject to judgment. Where did they get that? Torah. Right. And they said, but I tell you that anyone who nurses anger against his brother will be subject to judgment. And whoever calls his brother good for nothing will be brought before the Sanhedrin. That you say fully equals the penalty of burning in the fire of Gehenna. You see, Yeshua does not nullify the mitzvah. He correctly interprets it. How does He do that? You say you didn't touch him, but I say you killed him 1,000 times in your mind. Don't tell me you're righteous. It's always been about their heart and they missed it. But it's to the letter. I didn't kill him, so therefore you cannot condemn me. I hold you accountable because with that much hate, how long will it take before you do kill him? If he was dying in a pit, would you help him? No, I never killed him. He fell into the pit. Come on, he's not a nice guy. All of a sudden there is no love in that statement. Murder is about hate. It's your heart that's wrong. It says you're following the mitzvah, but your heart is far from me. You honor me with your lips, but your hearts are far from me. Are you establishing God? Or are you leading to tell people, don't worry, you didn't kill him, you're still fine, God loves you. It's okay. You scream at him and you curse him and you tell him, you fool. What translation do you have in your Bible? What does it say there when you call someone a fool?
Then you're acting for something.
Raka.
Yeah.
Some translations will say it's a spitting word. You spit at him. Isn't that what happened to you, sure? Spat at him, but it's more than that. The word is actually a curse. The word is actually saying, God will never love you. Don't you ever think about that. You're useless, you're good for nothing. And that will sit in someone's brain and that will drive them so far away from God that they will have no hope, and that's on you. Don't you ever come here and tell me you're a Torah teacher, but you tell someone that you do not have the heart of God. You have committed murder. He will have no eternal life because of the things that are coming to your mouth. Are you starting to understand? Because the rabbi is hitting them with some stuff. He says, so if you are offering your gift at the temple altar and you remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift where it is at the altar and go and make peace with your brother. Then you come back and you offer your gift. He says, don't think that you're going to be okay with your Father in heaven. He's watching everything that's in your heart. If your heart's not there, don't even think about the offering. It means nothing. The offering is not the problem. heart is the problem. If someone sues you, come to terms with him quickly while you're on the way to court, or he may hand you over to the judge, and the judge to the officer of the court, and you will be thrown into jail. Yes, indeed, I tell you, you will certainly not get out until you have paid the last penny. I said, if you don't make right, if you've hurt someone and it hasn't technically been okay, don't justify it, fix it. You have heard that our fathers were told, do not commit adultery. Does that mitzvah still stand? Hope so. But I tell you that a man who even looks at a woman with the purpose of lusting after her has already committed adultery with her in his heart. So you've already done it in your heart. You've already done it in your mind. How many times have you played that over in your head? How long do you think it will take until she notices, and if she's inclined to, all you need is opportunity. Same as murder. Be careful what you ponder on, it becomes your actions. It becomes your reality. Listen to this statement. If your right eye makes you sin, gouge it out and throw it away. Better that you should not lose one part of you than have the whole body thrown into Gehenna. If your right hand makes you sin, cut it off and throw it away. Better that you should lose one part of you than have your whole body thrown into Gehenna. Now, I've heard one guy tell me that he was willing at the point, because he was struggling with an addiction on the internet regarding pornography, that he went to God and he said, Father, I need to take out my one eye, I'll do it. Now that's a pretty serious conviction right there. Number one. Number two, I looked at him, I smiled, thank God, God freed him from it, but I said to him, but doesn't your left eye see the same thing that your right eye does? So what's the point of having one less eye? That's not what he's talking about here. Yeah, but I'll take it out. It's not going to stop you thinking about it. It's your brain, it's your heart, it's what you're focusing on that's the problem. He's talking about people. If your body, that part that's supposed to be your eye, is so broken that it doesn't want to do what it's supposed to do and encourages misinterpretation, misconduct, it's okay to sin, just as long as you don't physically touch someone or get caught. Because it only takes, you need 2 or 3 witnesses, so if one person catches you, don't worry, you're going to get away with it. Snap on the wrist. We'll keep watch. He's saying that person you don't deal with, you get them out, because they cannot fellowship with you. You will not function together. They will lead you to Gehenna. Instead of the whole body working, get rid of the problem. Who's he talking to? Scribes and Pharisees. And he says, your heart condition is wrong and you're poisoning my body. I'm going to cut you out unless you get fixed. It was said, whoever divorces his wife must give her again a certificate of divorce. But I tell you that anyone who divorces his wife except on the grounds of fornication, sexual immorality, makes her an adulteress. Makes her an adulteress. And that anyone who marries a divorcee commits adultery. Why do you think he's addressing that to a bunch of scribes and Pharisees? Why do you think there's a heart condition problem here?
They're changing things to suit them.
No, because it got so bad that because of their hardness of heart, they would have discussions that if you burnt the soup, he could tell you to leave.
It became so easy just to do.
Are we far away now? We don't even worry about the documentation anymore. We live together, and if we don't like it, we just call it quits. You go, I got my stuff, you got your stuff, it's fine, don't stress. What other stuff do we have? You get married, it's okay. Life's grand, you hit your first curve, don't worry, CNA sells divorce test pads. You write out your own certificate, you can file it yourself, it'll be done, it'll be cheap, it's not a problem. How is that echoing the Father's heart when He created Adam and Eve, that that very person is part of Him? How is that person supposed to be echad with you if you just think, burnt soup, burnt trousers, don't like her, she's cheeky, she doesn't like me, she looks at me funny, she smells bad in the morning, I didn't know until after I married her, so I got rid of her. Now if that's the hardness of man's heart, who's protecting the ladies? God stands up, as He always has done throughout Torah, and He says, you will not mistreat them. Again, you have heard that our fathers have said, don't break your oath and keep your vows to Adonai. What do you think the problem is? Substitution. I won't say I swear to God and using His name. I will say I swear by the altar place or the stones on the altar or the offering on the altar, and I will seem to make it less important. And I will use things in God's house to make promises, but I won't hold myself accountable to the fact that it is God's house. It doesn't matter whether I use the sand in it, it is still His house. I have lost all respect because I use formulation. But I tell you not to swear at all. Not by heaven because it is God's throne, not by earth because it is His footstool, not by Yerushalayim because it is the city of the great King. And don't swear by your head because you can't make a single hair white or black. Just let your yes be a simple yes and your no be a simple no. Anything more than this has its origin in evil. When you have heard that our fathers were told an eye for an eye or a tooth for a tooth, but I tell you not to stand up against someone who does you wrong. On the contrary, if someone hits you on your right cheek, let him hit you on your left cheek too. Now, who is it? An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Who? Who is that verse for? What's the context of that?
It's a Torah portion.
Right? For who?
I can't remember.
It's for the judges. The judges will determine the price to make restitution. It is for them, not for you. You don't get to determine it. God is judge, not you. If you listen to Him the first time, you wouldn't be taking things into your own hand. Shonsta, come stand here quickly. Okay? Just do. Now, he says, if I'm facing Shoni, which one is her right cheek? Which to your right? Her right cheek.
She's the longest.
Where's your right cheek? And if I strike on the right cheek, and if I'm right-handed, what do I have to do?
You turn on the lip.
Backhand.
A backhand slap, not even a frontal one. I'm walking away, and then out of rage, I strike. And now in that, he says, hit this side too, brother. It is a backhanded move. What does that tell you? Thank you. It's deceptive. It's deception. It's a lucky shot. It's a sucker punch. It's disrespectful. He did it to you underhandedly. And he says, if he hits you, who's the judge? God. And there's an interesting thing here when it talks about a bondservant. If you strike a slave, who is going to hold him to account? The owner. If you are God's son and God's daughter, who is going to hold that person to account? God. It is not your job to take vengeance. God is dealing with a bigger picture here. It's about salvation. It's about eternity. Let God be the judge. He says, let him hit you on the left cheek too. If someone wants to sue you for your shirt, give him your coat as well. What does it matter? And if a soldier forces you to carry his pack for 1 mile, carry it too. It was on Roman law that they were allowed to do this. You, Jew, you're nothing. As a 30, 40 kilogram backpack, you need to carry it for 1.6 kilometers. There were mile markers on the road, and you didn't have a choice. He says, why stop there? Go an extra mile for them. Did Yeshua not turn the other cheek when they struck him? When they spat at him? When they persecuted him for righteousness' sake? You see, he's showing you, he's telling you what he expects from you. And then he went and he showed you what that looked like. When someone asks you for something, give it to them. When someone wants to borrow something from you, lend it to them. You have heard that our fathers were told, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. That was their logic. Pray for those who persecute you. Then you will become children of your Father in heaven. For He makes His sun shine on good and bad people alike, and He sends rain to the righteous and the unrighteous alike. What reward do you get if you love only those who love you? Why, even the tax collectors do that. And if you are friendly only to your friends, are you doing anything out of the ordinary? Even the Goyim do that. Even the nations who don't know God do that. Therefore be perfect, just as your Father in heaven is perfect. You know, He's said so much already, He could have just stopped there, but He just follows up His statement and He says, look guys, it's very simple here. It doesn't matter what people do to you because your eyes are focused on who? God. If you solely focus on Him, you won't be worried about how other people are, what they've done to you, and when they're going to stand before God. Pray that they get saved before they stand before judgment, because if they don't come right before they do, it is only damnation that waits. How many people prayed for you? Who gives you the right to look at them and tell them they're not worth saving? Yeah, but you don't understand what they did to me. Do you understand what someone else did to them to get them to that broken point so that they thought it was okay to do to you? Who are you to judge that person? Were you there when they were crying, when they were being hurt? But now you see the offshoots of that and you think you're the one that has to hold them to account. You don't know them. Don't stand there telling God what He has to do because you are hurting. What does a kingdom servant do? You see, it's not about the people in front of me, it's not how many people follow me, it's not how many people think I'm okay, it's about whether God thinks I'm okay. My why is not man, my why is God. And if I'm solely focused on Him, it doesn't matter what the world does that's lost, that's confused, it doesn't know Him. I do. Are you going to follow your rabbi? When the world shunned Him, His disciples left Him, and He was standing alone facing death. And He said, my time will come, but Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. I'm not trying to wash away your hurt, I'm not trying to get rid of all the things that you've had to carry, but I'm telling you, let it go, because God's going to hold it to account. Pray that He gets them in before that happens. And then you will be a kingdom servant. Look past your hurt and look to Him. How much has He had to look past in you to get you here? And you're still a work in progress. You still require mercy, you still want patience, you still want ruach, you still want power, you still want mercy. Father, each and every day flow through me so that that don't get stuck on me. Guys, this last thing, it says, be perfect for your Father in heaven is perfect. There's only one way you're going to get that right, as if the ruach flows so much and so strong that the world doesn't see you, but it sees Him. So if you're having a bad time, if you're having a difficult time, I'm not trying to nullify what you're feeling. I'm telling you to take it to the Father and turn that into fuel. Give it to Him. Forgive them. Let them go. They only thought they were doing right. Or they were only hurting, so they wanted other people to hurt with them. It doesn't mean... It just means they're human. But you're more than. Your righteousness does not come from man. It does not come from deeds. It comes from God. And And if that gift flows through you and pumps through your veins, and is the why you get up, because you need to be covered in His righteousness, to be filled so you can flow, so He can flow. And then you will expand the kingdom of God. Then you will look at man and see him for what he is, lost, confused, and they don't know their maker. And if you see them for what they really are, you will understand compassion, because you were there too. It's not just about following the letter of the law. It's about your heart condition that makes you want to follow it. It is about glorifying God. It's about being betrothed to Him. It's about Him and how I reflect Him, not just what I can get away with. How am I going to establish the kingdom of heaven? How is it being established in me? So just as somehow God got me into this knowledge, how am I getting others into that? You see, you can only share what you know. And if you don't love it, they'll quickly see it. But if it flows through you, then you're giving them something that nothing on earth will replicate. Because it's not from here, neither are you anymore. If people thought you were weird, you're completely foreign now. And that's because He's preparing you for something bigger. The kingdom servant is not worrying about this earthly inheritance, he's worrying about the God he serves. And He's going to be the inheritance to come. Amen? Amen. All right. Great time is every time.